The boy stood at the edge of the ruined railway station, his small frame swallowed by the oversized army coat that hung from his shoulders. His name was Thomas Gray, 12 years old, though the years of war had aged him beyond recognition. The world around him was gray too, shattered bricks, twisted rails, and the lingering scent of smoke that never seemed to leave the air. The war had ended months ago, but its ghost still roamed freely. Thomas had been separated from his parents when the city fell. One night of chaos had turned his childhood into a blur of hunger, hiding, and surviving among strangers. He remembered his mother's voice calling his name as soldiers marched through the streets. He remembered his father's arms pushing him into a basement and the sound of explosions swallowing the world above. When he woke up, everything he knew was gone. Now, after 3 years in a refugee camp and another wandering through orphan convoys, a name had appeared on a worn list at the Red Cross tent: Gray, Samuel and Anne. His parents. They were alive, somewhere in the capital, waiting for anyone who could tell them about their son. As the train rattled toward the city, Thomas pressed his face to the window. The world outside looked nothing like the one he remembered. Burnt fields, empty homes, children begging near crossroads. He felt both hope and fear, hope that he might see his family again, and fear that they might not remember the boy who had left them. When he reached the city, he walked for hours through streets filled with silence and dust. Every door seemed to whisper memories of people who never came back. Finally, he stood before a small building with cracked walls, a red cross painted over its entrance. Inside, a woman at a desk looked up and smiled softly. "Name, Thomas Gray," he whispered, his voice trembling. Her eyes widened. She flipped through a thick folder and then looked at him as if she'd seen a miracle. "Wait here," she said, her voice shaking. "Wait right here." Minutes later, a man and woman appeared at the doorway. They looked thinner, older, like the war had carved years from their faces. The man's once dark hair had turned white around the edges, and the woman's hands trembled as she covered her mouth. Thomas stood frozen. The moment he'd dreamed of was finally here, but suddenly, he didn't know what to say. "Mom," he whispered. The woman stared at him. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice came out uncertain, hesitant. "Thomas," he nodded, stepping forward. "It's me." But the silence that followed cut deeper than any wound. His father looked at him, confusion clouding his eyes. The boy standing before them was thin, scarred, his eyes distant, nothing like the bright child they remembered. For a moment, they didn't move. The air between them was filled with doubt. Thomas's heart sank. "They don't recognize me," he thought. After all the years, after all the nights he'd whispered their names to the stars, maybe they couldn't see their son in this stranger. He turned slightly, ready to leave. "Maybe I made a mistake," he murmured. Then something small, something fragile, broke inside his mother. She took a step forward. "Wait," she said softly. Her eyes searched his face, trembling, desperate. Then she saw it, the tiny scar above his eyebrow, the one from when he'd fallen from the apple tree in their backyard. She gasped, "That scar, Thomas!" In an instant, she ran forward, wrapping him in her arms. The father followed, his body shaking as he clung to them both. The dam of years broke open, and the sound of sobbing filled the quiet room. Thomas didn't cry at first. He simply stood there, feeling the warmth of their embrace, the warmth he thought he'd lost forever. But then the tears came, years worth of pain spilling out like rain after drought. "I thought you were gone," he whispered. "So did we," his mother said, her voice breaking. "Every night, I prayed that somehow, you'd find your way back to us." The father stroked his son's hair. "You've grown so much," he said. "Too fast. You shouldn't have had to." For the first time in years, Thomas felt safe. But even in that moment of reunion, something heavy stayed in his chest. He had seen things no child should see, men fighting for scraps of bread, friends lost to disease and gunfire. The world outside this small circle of love was still broken. That night, they sat around a small fire in their new home. The city was dark, but the stars above looked clearer than ever. His mother placed a bowl of soup in front of him, her hands trembling slightly. "You're home now," she said. Thomas looked up. "Home," he repeated, the word tasting strange and beautiful on his tongue. He looked at his parents, their tired faces, their hopeful eyes, and something stirred inside him. "Can I tell you something?" he said softly. "When I was alone, I used to help others find their families. There was this girl, Anna, she couldn't stop crying. So, I stayed with her until her father came. It made me feel less lost." His mother smiled through her tears. "You helped others even when you were hurting." Thomas nodded. "I didn't want anyone else to feel what I felt." His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then you've already done more good in this world than most men ever will." Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of laughter from other homes, families finding each other after years of darkness. Thomas felt something inside him heal. Not all at once, but slowly, like morning light creeping over a broken city. He realized then that war had taken everything from him. His childhood, his innocence, but it hadn't taken his heart. It hadn't taken his ability to care, to love, to hope. As his parents drifted to sleep beside the fire, Thomas whispered to himself, "The war is over." But in his heart, he knew the real victory wasn't in the silence of the guns. It was in moments like this, where love survived against all odds. Years later, when he was asked about the war, Thomas never spoke about the battles or the hunger. He spoke about the night he found his parents, the night love defeated the ruins of hate. Because in that broken city, amid the ashes of the past, one small family reminded the world of something simple and eternal. That even after years of war, kindness and love could still bring the lost home again.